Let us begin at the beginning. What once was whole was split asunder, and in its place there arose two worlds. Worlds as different as daylight and darkness, virtue and evil. One is called New Genesis, unparalleled in its beauty. It is ruled by the wise and powerful Highfather. The other is Apocalypse, a ravaged wasteland, ruled by the demonic and omnipotent Darkseid. He psychically feeds on the despair and misery of others. Because of their opposite natures, these two worlds have been locked in eternal war. However, an uneasy truce was established when Darkseid and Highfather exchanged their infant sons. Unfortunately, this has not diminished Darkseid's ambitions. For years, he has searched the galaxies for the legendary anti-life equation, a formula that would give him complete control over all living things. In his endless search, he has conquered and subjugated planet after planet.
From beyond. Listen, and all you desire will be yours. Welcome to Spider-Dan and the Secret Balls. Prepare for Prattle.
Do you remember this? This is an obscure one, but on the side of the box, I remember this on my Superman costume, it actually said, "Do not attempt to fly." They printed that as a warning, because kids were putting it on and going off the roofs, you know.
Welcome to Prattle World. I'm your host, the ever-amazing, ever-spectacular Spider-Dan, and in this podcast, I spotlight entertainment's best-kept secrets that a mainstream audience may find boring. And welcome to Comic Observations, where we take a step back and observe comic books and the comic book industry with open eyes. And it is the final installment of Alien Month. We have been on a cosmic odyssey through many films and many crazy alien worlds and ideas, but it all comes down to this. And we're going into the DC universe, the multiverse of DC, to find out what the fuck is an anti-life equation. We're going to find out what the fuck that is. But yes, and I was going to have two guests today, but unfortunately, the anti-life equation has gotten the better of Max Byrne. So he's not here, but he has sent in some thoughts about what we're going to be looking at. But I Am Jack's Musings of Back to the Filmography is back to Prattle World to talk all alien stuff. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you, good sir. You know I'm always happy to be here and love spending time talking with you, no matter the subject. And you keep giving me good stuff. People always talk about you as being... You gave yourself a wonderful name in a podcast I listened to it recently. Essentially, you're saying you're the... I can't remember some sort of...
I think it was the Sultan of Shit.
Sultan of Shit, that is it. Thank you. Yeah, always like a bit of alliteration. Not with me. You keep giving me lovely stuff to do. And, you know, I'm gonna put this in the same category as well. There's nothing shit going on here.
All right. Well, we're going to find out. We're going to find out. So... Yeah, so we are talking Cosmic Odyssey, written by Jim Starlin, the creator of Thanos, or the stealer of Darkseid, maybe, if you want to go that far. and also the creator of Hellboy, Mike Mignola, is bringing his artistic talents to this tale. So this is 1988, the year I was birthed. I came unto this universe out of an antimatter dimension. I was brought forth. My aspects spread forth and multiplied, but I
That
didn't
makes
destroy the
so
cosmos.
much sense. Yeah.
Just the big dark,
Now I get
ebon fingers reaching out into the void, grasping the planets and crushing them in my palm.
What is it? Starfly says, "What is this sticky ooze?" It's Spider-Man. That's what it is.
Spider-Dan and his sticky ooze, and weird
Emerging
sex
into
stuff.
the cosmos.
He's gooey and weird, and that's the kind of films he brings to us. I mean, we've had quite a lot of. I mean, the last podcast when we did Body Snatchers, that was quite weird and gooey, to say the least. But yeah, I thought I'd go with. I've not done enough comics this year, and I wanted to bring something that I have actually been meaning to do for some time. So way back when on Mandatory Marvel and DC, me and Max talked about the death of Captain Marvel by Jim Starlin and how he co-opted a lot of the ideas of Jack Kirby, the New Gods, and created his own kind of, they call it the fourth world in the DC kind of universe, that kind of, all the characters he created, Mr. Miracle, the Forever People, and so on. So he did his own kind of, version of that to a degree, and kind of created its own kind of semi-cosmic universe within Marvel, because it had a cosmic universe to a degree, but I think it hadn't had the kind of scope that Starlin brought to it eventually, and it eventually was brought into the Marvel films as well, the MCU. It was something that we talked about, I think, at the end of that podcast about doing it. So that's why I kind of wanted Max to come on again, because it was something I was like, I remember really enjoying this one. I remember because it came up. I think I'd read it fairly recently when we talked about it then, and then I wanted to kind of come back to it. And I thought this is a good one for Alien Month because the lead characters are mostly, for the most part, aliens. So yeah, we'll get into it. But this was a big year for Jim Starlin. So he had a Batman run, which was I think he reworked Jason Todd's origin post-Crisis, because before he was kind of a very much like a direct copy of Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, and even dyed his hair to look more like the original Robin. And then he had his own run and kind of developed that character, made him the angry kind of punk that he was. And then also at the end of the run, famously had to kill him off. Because the fans, and that was the same year as this comic as well, which again, very Batman. This comic is very Batman centric, I would say, probably arguably maybe even the lead character to a degree in this miniseries. But yeah, it was a big kind of eventful year, and again, he's playing with those toys that he was not really playing with over at Marvel, kind of playing with. I remember Len Wein said to him, he was like, if you're going to rip off the New Gods and Jack Kirby, why not do Darkseid, rip off Darkseid? And that's why he created Thanos. That was his idea to kind of, if he's going to rip him off, if he's going to do a mentor who is Star Fox's father is basically Highfather in this, and then Star Fox, who was introduced into the Eternals, spoilers for the Eternals, if you want to see it, if you have seen it, whatever, Star Fox is in there, Thanos' brother, and again, that was Light Ray in this, was their version. And how much do you know, Jack, about the kind of Jack Kirby Fourth World New Gods type of thing? I'm sure you've seen like the animated DC series, you've seen the Zack Snyder stuff. What do you know about it to a degree?
Well, you mentioned Max and all his lovely knowledge and all the wonderful conversations you two could have been having tonight. Instead, it's going to be me going, oh, I'm learning this. Oh, I'm learning that. I mean, I've done some research before I've come on because I'm not that lazy. But yeah, I'm coming at this pretty fresh. There were characters I met for the first time when I read this. But thanks to the wonders of the World Wide Web, it meant I could go, oh, who's that person? And click, and then, oh, that leads on to that person. And now I know that. And I think this actually works on that level, though, for somebody that I don't think you need to be in the know on all these people and all the back history. It'll be interesting to talk about as much as we talk about tonight. But I don't think this comic requires you to have that background knowledge. Starlin does a really good job of like setting the table in issue 1 with who these people are and how they know each other and what their kind of power sets are and how that's going to be important later. I think that was well worked out. I mean, these people are the best for a reason, right? So yeah, not an awful lot, enough that I read this without any problems, but then it made me invested and interested in finding out much more.
So the initial idea Kirby had was over at Marvel. So he said, what if we killed off all the old gods? So if we kill off Thor and that entire cast of characters, not unlike Ragnarok, and then we give birth to new gods, literal new gods. Let's have Ragnarok happen. Let's have it occur. It's been prophesized to occur. We've played with it for years and years in the comics. Let's just fucking go for it. Let's do it. And then Stan Lee was like, yeah, but what about all the comics and all the fans and all the characters and all the, he's like, it's good, let's go for it. And Stan was not keen, or the publishers at the time weren't keen. So he made the jump to DC and he told that story. And if you look at those original kind of panels where the old gods die, they do look like the Asgardian characters. They're drawn, they have the same armor. So you can tell there's kind of that kind of connective tissue there. I think all you kind of need to know is a big cataclysm happens, and it kind of tells you in this book anyway, which kind of figures into the main plot, is the creation of New Genesis and Apocalypse. So a big cataclysmic is the word I'm looking for, event occurs, and it splits one world asunder, it splits a universe asunder. Two planets survive. One is a dark and evil planet called Apocalypse. One is a nice and kind of seemingly utopic society, but we'll find out why that's not entirely true. And they are then at war constantly, but then a truce is made between the two leaders, Darkseid and Highfather, and what they decide to do is swap their sons. So Darkseid ends up, raising Mr. Miracle, not really raising him, basically keeping him locked up and in slavery, and then Orion is raised over with Highfather on New Genesis. And basically Darkseid is always trying to get round this truce, basically, which usually involves attacking Earth or going to Earth or doing things there, because it's not a direct attack against New Genesis. So you see that in the animated series a little bit. You'll see that at the end of the Superman animated series when Darkseid makes his kind of presence known as the show goes on. And then again in kind of Justice League and in various other adaptations, these characters do keep cropping up because they're the toys in the toy chest everyone wants to play with. I can see why some people wouldn't be that keen, like modern audiences aren't that interested. I can get that, I understand it. I mean, I've got the full, years ago I bought the full, I've got these huge kind of omnibuses of the full thing, of Jack Kirby's full run of New Gods comics. I have not got through them at all. I've barely got through any of them, but I want to, and I will do some point. I just haven't found the impetus to do that. So maybe this will spur me on a little bit more to read it. But I think pretty much that's all you need to know, apart from like Darkseid looking for this anti-life equation. So what did you know of the anti-life equation before you read this?
Well, I mean, I could make some summations based on the name. They probably wouldn't be right based on what I read afterwards. So yeah, again, not very much other than what I've heard, having read, watched, seen it being mentioned in other things. And again, I don't know how much that really matters. I mean, the things that are presented to you in this are otherworldly. They are alien. They almost cosmic. They are cosmic, but they are almost kind of anti-life for what you would imagine what life forms would be anyway. Do you know what I mean? So many times we see it in comics and in TV movies, the bipedal alien arrives and it looks a little bit like a human, so we can get on with it. Here, the aliens and the anti-life, what are they called? The anti-life, the ALAs, aren't they? They're called like the anti-life alien. That's not it, but it's something. Anti-life entity?
The aspects or aspect entity.
Aspects,
yeah,
that's
entity.
it. Thank you. Yeah. Like those things which are presented to us when we finally meet them in these comics are totally otherworldly, are totally cosmic, are totally anti-life. So again, I think it balances that well, that if you're coming to this with a lot of knowledge, great. If not, it's a bunch of weird stuff in space.
Definitely is. Comics are weird. I can confirm that. The anti-life equation is basically whatever the fuck the writer wants it to be, basically. This is probably the one that's kind of the most graspable as a concept in this. I think everything else is it kind of enslaves people, or it can corrupt you, or it gives you depression, or it's just, everything that your life is, like the positive things, being alive, having having fun and, you know, love and, you know, adventure. I think it's almost like the reverse of that. So it's like depression, spending time on your own, being forced to do things you don't want, that type of thing. But it does depend. It does vary. So this, obviously, DC Comics are known for retconning everything all of the time. It's their bag. They're like, oh, you like that story? Retconned. You like that story? Retconned. Maybe just year one kind of stands out, but even then, they've done multiple versions of Batman's origin. There is stuff in here that is still canon technically. So this is an important book to a degree, but you know, things can change. And again, this anti-life entity, let's call it, that has been altered and retconned as well. So whatever the writer tends to think or want it to be, they'll just make it into that. Grant Morrison had his view on it. Jim Starlin had his view on it. Neil Gaiman had his view on it. There's all these other writers have kind of played around with the idea. Kirby probably had a different idea on it himself. They've all got their own take on it. So, but this is a take, and we'll get into it. So
even within this comic, it's not quite as simple as there being one read on what it is. Because when Batman talks about anti-life, he talks about it almost as a very literal interpretation of those two words put together. But that's not quite what's presented. And I read the same as what you've just explained. This idea of kind of this enslavement and this kind of anti-life being you. I guess it's like no choice as such, like you say, you're enslaved. So it feels like, even within this 4 issues, which I know they're I can't remember what the name is, but they're long issues, aren't they? They're like 48
double-sized issues, I think, or special format, or kind of the issues I have a cardboard cover, so they're kind of prestige issues. You can get it as a graphic novel. It is available on Kindle as well if you want to buy it there. But yeah, so this was like kind of an event, like a mini event.
Yeah.
Even though it's not one of the, it's not, you know, what's great about this, no fucking tie-ins, no fucking crossover bullshit. It's just these 4 issues, these characters, this adventure, go.
It feels like an event, like the way it's presented feels like an event. But I think, like, you know, just to finish, you know, what you were saying and then how I was responding to that idea of, like, you're right, like there is no kind of one direct understanding, even within the cast of people in this. But I think that's quite interesting of a concept of itself, that the characters within the comic have their own interpretation of what anti-life means. I think that's quite an interesting premise. Whether it was meant or not, I think, you know, for us to be able to talk about that and for people to be able to read it and put their own interpretation of what that means, it is an interesting thing anyway.
Absolutely. So I think it's a good time for us to get into the story. So, you know, some people feel I'm very harsh making people do synopses or plots. Do you want to attempt to do this, or shall I do it? I'll give you the choice.
I can give it a go if you want, and then when I totally mess it up, you can just tidy up at the end.
I'll just be like, here's what he got wrong.
Yeah, absolutely, do that.
No. I think you're going to do smashing at this. Off you go. Give us the brief summary for Cosmic Odyssey.
Sure. Okay. Brief summary is Highfather and Darkseid team up. They put aside the differences because they're worried about the anti-life entity and the fact that they have these, what did you call them? I've forgotten straight away. The anti-life aspects. There's 4 aspects that are out in the universe that need to be stopped, out in the cosmos that need to be stopped. So they call upon some of Earth's mightiest heroes. Oh no, that's the wrong brand. Sorry. They call
the world's greatest heroes, I think.
Yeah. They call upon some of the world's greatest heroes, and they mix them up and they put them in pairs with some of the New God characters, and they all go from their little separate missions to stop these aspects who have created some doomsday bombs, which are being like protected and controlled by the aspects. And it's like, if 2 go off, it will cause such a cataclysmic like fissure within the universe. It will collapse our Milky Way. That's obviously bad, but it will also open up the opportunity for the entity to come through and start spreading anti-life across the galaxy. Can they team up? And will we see a Darkseid twist and manipulation coming? I wonder.
And does Batman have plans within plans and wheels within wheels?
Sure.
Maybe.
Is Superman everyone's greatest hope? And is he like chisel-jawed and righteous? And He is, but there are lots of other really interesting things going on in this comic.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, you know what I realized coming into it, I forgot how kind of funny it is, how like darkly humorous it is.
Mm-hmm.
There's some real touch of, like, there's a bit where Highfather summons the heroes. He sends an agent to the White House and says, "We need these specific people. Can you call them?" And he's like, okay, I guess we require them as diplomats. And then they come through the boom tube, which is the only way you can get to Apocalypse because it is in a separate dimension, which they say. That's why the Green Lanterns, again, have never come across Darkseid or the New Gods because it's not in their jurisdiction, let's say. So yeah, I think they're called and they all turn up and they're like, and they were like, Superman makes a joke like, Batman, a diplomat? Come on.
Yeah. And he gives a bit of sass. He's like, this is the only time, by the way, I'll do this. Don't, because they are Superman to collect everyone together. It's like, I'm not your errand boy. Don't do this again. Like, he's a bit sassy there as well. I like it.
And also another funny moment almost directly after that. Highfather welcomes him, welcome to, New Genesis. Again, he's gathering the team together for the mission. And then Darkseid makes his appearance known. And Superman's like, Darkseid. And then there's just a panel of him flying towards Darkseid. And then there's another panel of him flying away from Darkseid, showing that he's just been decked by Darkseid. And then Highfather's like, stop, Superman. We're teaming up with him. We're putting our differences aside. And Darkseid, just over Highfather's shoulder, is giving Superman the biggest shit-eating grin you've ever seen in your life. It is fucking brilliant. But yeah, like it's a really good story because it balances that kind of cosmic level event with the kind of real human, like, we could actually fucking die. Like this is, we've got cracked ribs, we've got broken legs, people are dying left and right, being destroyed, going mad. There's definitely a sense of peril. Definitely in 100% sense of peril, but it's also a very human story, and we'll get into some of the really, really human stuff later on with some of the characters. But I forgot how kind of charming it was. But again, there's the peaks and troughs, there's the levity, there's the fun, there's the fantasy, there's the sci-fi, but also there's like that deep emotional human core to the story as well, which again is such a kind of a roller coaster.
It is. It's sometimes something that I struggle with some DC books and event books, is that sometimes it feels too big. The event is big, the people are really overpowered, as my son would say, they're OP.
Sure.
And I sometimes find it quite hard. Like you spoke at the start about like that sense of like that grounded nature. I know you're a big fan, Daredevil. Everyone loves Spider-Man. Everyone loves Batman. We love that kind of ground level character who are doing kind of the down and dirty and existing there. I sometimes find it difficult to engage and to connect properly when it's like two overpowered superpower beings having a fight. Well, it's like, oh, what's really going to happen? But I agree with you. This does a really good job of creating credible threats for almost everybody, I would say, within this comic.
We'll get to that one mission that I want to talk about a bit later. We'll talk about all the teams, but yeah, initially we see Light Ray and Superman team up in Gotham, and you've got all the parademons that are Darkseid's little minions that come. They kind of defeat them, and the Light Ray's like, why didn't you call Batman? I know he's just a mere human. I love that line from Superman. Who's like, if you think Batman's a mere human, you've not met him.
Yeah, he says, who told you Batman was a normal human? I wrote that down. Yeah, that's a great line. Yeah,
that's got what works on so many levels. Like, he's not normal as in he's a bit touched in the head, but also like he's someone you don't want to mess with.
Yeah, you think you'll
find a way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then we see that one of them is left behind, one of the parademons, and one big hulking parademon. He loses his mother box, so there's no way for him to return to Apocalypse. So he's stuck in Gotham, which arguably could be worse than Apocalypse and the fire pits. I'll let you decide. But yeah, he's stuck there, and then months later, people are going missing. There's a murderer, a cop has gone missing, and Batman and Jim Gordon are talking about figuring out how to get him. Batman, disguises himself as a homeless man and goes into the sewers and discovers this apocalyptic nightmare, so to speak. What did you think of that sequence?
It's cool. It's really quite kind of grisly. He turns a corner. Batman's almost like physically sick when he discovers his cadavers hanging down in the sewers. Yeah, it's really cool. I think that we were just speaking about how like this feels like a credible threat to Batman. It actually feels like he's got a good chance of losing this physical altercation. But I really like, and interesting, I didn't know this until, I know you'll read Max's comments out later. I really like Mignola's drawing in this comic in general, but I particularly like how he draws action scenes and fights here. They feel kinetic. It feels like there's movement. I really understand where a character is and what they're doing. And I talk about this a lot. It's really boring, but how geographically that relates to the other characters in the scene or where they are in the scene. Or this fight in the sewer feels dangerous. And I understand the whole time where the Parademon and Batman are and how that relates and just how much trouble Batman's in. I think it's a really good sequence. And it kind of gives me Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle vibes, which is always a good thing.
And it's not unlike the Justice League opening with Batman fighting a Parademon on the rooftop. It's quite similar in some. I'm not saying it's as good as the sequence here or whether we can compare them, but it did give me like, oh shit, they've done this on a live action film, which is it's kind of crazy. But yeah, I love that battle, and I love that. I think he does pace really well as well, Mignola. I think there's a sense of pace. Like there's a sequence where like a bomb is counting down later, and I was literally like counting down. Like it had me. I didn't have to count down. I knew I knew what each panel was going to say, but he had me counting. Eat like 1, 2, he had me doing the countdown because I was like, shit, this is going to go off. Shit, literally, it's oh shit, it's at 0. Fuck, and then issue 4 open. And it's like, you bastards, you got me reading the next one. You got me on the cliffhanger. But yeah, I love that he's completely outmatched. And again, I've said this before and I'll say it again. I'm not a Bat God fan. I don't like the idea that Batman can take everyone down and there's basically no issue and there's no one he can't beat with prep time and all that other bollocks. I like a human, fallible, vulnerable Batman. And I think Jim Starlin, again, read The Cult, read any of his stuff, his Batman stuff. It's great. Night of the KG Beast, 10 Nights of the Beast, I did very early on the podcast, is a Jim Starlin book. Very dated because it's about the Star Wars platform and Ronald Reagan and all that other shit, but it is a really solid Batman story regardless. And I think there's something about him and getting those stories. Death of the Family, again, we've mentioned, again, there's something about the way he writes Batman which really, really kind of hits home for me. And I love this moment as well where Batman is forced to use a gun, basically, effectively. It's an alien weapon and stuff, but I like that he's like, I really don't like to use guns, but in certain situations, I will.
He strikes wider, doesn't he? I really don't like to use weapons, he says, and then he narrows it down, doesn't he?
That's right.
Yeah.
I don't know what a batarang is then. Is that not a weapon? Considers that a defensive thing. But yeah, and then he shoots this massive fuck off hole in this giant Parademon's chest. And you're like, oh, he's dead.
It's gonna pay off later, that hole. I really like, and I don't know whether it's in the writing of Starling or the drawing of Mignola, like who made the decision. But I really like the repeated use of like silhouette in this, that we often see like the characters being lit from behind. So from in front, they look almost like a silhouette, but the symbol is always showing. So we get it in the Superman fight early on with the Parademons. We get it a lot here with Batman. It looks really cool. So I don't know, like whoever deserves the praise, both of them, one of them, either of them, I'm not sure.
I think that's probably a lot earlier on, I think someone's done it before him. It might be Neil Adams or somebody like that. I think it was probably more kind of late 60s, early 70s, maybe into the 80s. I think maybe Frank Miller a little bit maybe could have started doing that in the early 80s. Potentially. I don't know who did it. But I think it was before Mignola. But again, like you've got two like big Kirby fans here as well, like coming together and going, we love Kirby. Again, all the toys in the toy box, let's fucking go, basically. And if you read his Hellboy, all the stuff he's doing here, he does in Hellboy really well. The fight scenes. I mean, I messaged Max about this. He said, I'm not that keen on Mignola's art style. I was like, oh, I love the big chests and huge arms and spindly legs. They're my favorite. The absolutely, because it's not real. Like no. You can never do a Hellboy movie with him having tiny legs and a massive chest. But again, Kirby was so stylized. People either loved it or they hated it, and that was it is, and it was hard to ink as well because he was so stylized. People didn't know what to do or how to handle that. Because it was such a powerful image. They didn't want to ruin it or erase anything. Again, he's the king, isn't he? So, and that's coming very much into play here. not only do Commissioner Gordon and Batman not find the body, the demon goes missing as well.
Yeah. Oh, because it's a cop, isn't it? They're looking for.
Yeah, it's a missing cop. So some people have gone missing, but then
Some homeless people,
apparently when
wasn't
a
it? Yeah.
cop goes missing, that's when it's important for the police to investigate. Oh, is it now?
Yeah, funny that.
That's when Batman comes along. But he's been that demon's been down there for like months and months and months and months as well, like months, because it gives you the time frame. I think it says like 3 or 4 months.
I thought it was interesting when Batman discovers it because he calls him a cannibal, and I was like, I get it. He's not really, is he? Because he's an alien. So if he wants to eat humans, then
it's not he's not eating his own people. So is he a cannibal? Yeah, because the idea of cannibal. If I ate a dog, I'm not a cannibal. I'm just eating a dog. I'm not a very good person, but I'm not a cannibal. Yeah, I don't know. But I guess he's keeping it again. That's him kind of bring it down to the human level, because I think at that point he doesn't know he's an alien. I think when he's saying that, I believe. Maybe.
Oh, maybe that's true. Actually, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, because he's still investigating. He's found the bodies, but he's not met the alien. I think he knows there's something not quite right. Something they're quite powerful, or the way they hold themselves. Or, because he made the alien's made himself a giant armchair, hasn't he? I forgot that he makes himself like he was like no human
almost.
could sit in this arm.
Yeah,
because he's like he can't sit comfortably because he's so fucking big. He needs to build himself a weird armchair.
I like the kind of detective feel to this section as well. Like it had a kind of, it's only 5 pages, 6 pages or something, but it had that kind of classic Batman detective feel to it too, where he's actually having to investigate something and use his street smarts and put on a Mac and all that kind of stuff, isn't it? Yeah,
absolutely.
Weird seeing him in daylight though. Always weird seeing him in daylight.
Yeah, especially in like New Genesis, it's kind of odd. It's kind of an odd feeling, but I guess you kind of have to make some allowances when it's like,
oh sure,
you're doing the team up thing. You can't really have him like, to a degree. He has to kind of find a common ground, and it's kind of a meet halfway with all the other characters.
I know I'm jumping ahead a bit here, but like when he's on his team up, there's almost like a restyling moment, where he says like, I work best in the dark, so I'm basically going to get Alfred to make you a new costume. Alfred, click the fingers, come to work. And then immediately next time you see them, this guy's got his new cool costume on, it's red and black, and he looks great next to Batman. And then they're on their mission. It's fucking daylight. Now, to be fair, when they fulfill their mission, it's nighttime. But it's just a hilarious sequence of events. It's like Batman is insistent. No, you will change your costume. You new god. You will do as you're told.
Yeah, all right.
Alfred, get on with it. Make it. And then it's in daylight anyway. I just thought it was a funny sequence.
But Batman, what about that bright yellow emblem on your chest? Is that not maybe giving it away a little bit? I know there's arguments.
It looks cool when I'm in silhouette, and that still shows.
Yeah, and you can only see that. That's it. It's classic in shadow. Like they'll argue in modern comics, they argue like that's where he's most heavily armored, so they puts that there.
Okay,
same with the Punisher.
The target, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like, okay, well, if I shoot there, then I'm more likely to be alive. So we learn as well that Metron. So Metron is another New God character who's kind of not really good or bad. He is a guy who is he rides this thing called the Mobius chair, which gives him like advanced intelligence, and Batman later on rides it in I think it was Trinity War or something like that.
It was a bit like Kang's throne again for you talking about that Marvel DC kind of copying. It feels a bit like that.
Well, another character that Kirby created. So yeah, it's not outside the realms of possibility. And he's a character who's just after information. He loves to have knowledge. He needs to know all. That's his quest for being. And he has discovered the anti-life equation and decides to use it, but he goes into a separate dimension as not to damage his own. And he basically unleashes the anti-life or meets the anti-life. And the anti-life equation is actually a living being. So it's this big, dark, foreboding, cosmic giant. And during he obviously Metron is like, fuck, what have I done? And immediately tries to escape and seal off the anti-life equation back in his own dimension, this kind of antimatter universe. And the anti-life equation entity is able to shoot off 4 aspects, as we've talked about already, into the positive matter universe. So into, whether that be, I think it's the Milky Way galaxy, because that's all the planets they go to, and Metron comes back and he's basically brain dead, and Darkseid finds him because he's like, oh, he's close to the anti-life equation, we've got to find out. And he kind of investigates and does his own kind of calculations and realizes he's in trouble, but he's going to need more than just his like little minions. He's going to need heroes to save the day in order to stop it. And that's when we get to the point where Highfather is asking for all these heroes to be diplomats. So we have Batman, we have Superman, we have John Stewart Green Lantern, we have Martian Manhunter, we have Starfire of the Teen Titans, and we have Jason Blood. I think that's everyone, isn't it? I'm not missing anyone. And they're all recruited. And again, they're brought to New Genesis. Darkseid and Highfather explain the situation, and they explain the creation of their world. Like, the old gods made a weapon, an anti-life cannon, because they were at war with these inhuman characters, these inhuman aliens, because they were like, we're superior to these ugly aliens, so we must kill them. And they destroy their world and open the anti-life. But then it doesn't explain what fights back the anti-life. It just says, for some reason, the anti-life went back into his universe, which part of me feels like that's DC skating around like, does God exist?
Oh, really? Kind of okay. I never.
It just says, oh, he, for whatever. It's kind of like Palpatine has returned. The Emperor has returned. It's kind of like all of a sudden the anti-life equation creature entity retreated back into his own dimension. I was like, yeah. I thought by the end of the book we might learn what that was or what caused that, but it kind of just.
I just sort of had the sense that there was no way for it to transfer through at the moment, which is why it had these aspects that were doing it.
And then part of me thinks maybe that's the idea of the Big Bang, because that explosion separates the new gods' worlds from the Milky Way galaxy. So was that the Big Bang? Maybe that they're implying that maybe that's the Big Bang and starts the creation of all life in the Milky Way galaxy. I don't know. But yeah, it was. I think they were deliberately vague about that. I thought maybe it was something we'd find out by the end of the book, or maybe in a sequel or something else. But as far as I'm aware, I think again, every time a new writer gets hold of Thor, they give Thor's like Asgard a new origin anyway. So they kind of change it up a little bit each time to kind of support the stories they're telling. So I kind of feel like maybe it's just that. Maybe they're just tweaking it a little bit. Even though they've sealed off the main entity, the 4 aspects get out, and they've all possessed somebody on a different planet. So there's 4 different planets. We've got Earth, we've got Ran, which is where Adam Strange's planet, as we get a little cameo from him. We get a planet called Zanshi, and then we have Earth and Thanagar. Is that right? I think yeah. So yeah, Zanshi, Ran, Earth and Thanagar, the 4 planets. And as you said, quite eloquently put, if one of these planets is, 2 of these planets of the 4 is destroyed, it will collapse the Milky Way galaxy, allowing the entity to come forth and live in an full antimatter universe. So their mission is to stop them. So I think it's a good time to talk about each and every mission. Which one would you like to talk about first? Which team would you like to talk about? Or do you want to do it kind of chronologically? I can't remember which one comes first.
Yeah, we'll start with the least interesting to most interesting. Good. I don't know.
Yeah, well, you tell me what is the least interest. Yeah, tell me what you think is the least interesting team up and adventure.
Well, not team up, but I think they do the least with them would be the Superman and Orion.
I'm going to disagree with you.
It's not a slight on either of the characters. There's just not as much drama in there. Which is mad to think, considering Orion wipes out a whole civilization, but a whole city of Thanagarians. But there just doesn't, other than that moment, it never, the jeopardy I think isn't there in this story that is in the others. Maybe that's what it is for me.
I think another adventure is worse. Shall I tell you what my?
Yeah.
So I think. Light Ray and Starfire. Also, I don't think it's a very interesting team up anyway. The 2 characters, I think.
Yeah, that's fair.
Really, they're not different enough, and they're not got enough kind of conflict, like internal conflict for me. She thinks he's a self-righteous prick and like a show-off and a chauvinist, and he's just like, I'm a god.
Yeah, and he calls her Kara the whole time, doesn't he? He uses her name.
Yeah, I think it's Cora.
Cora, thank you. Yeah, Kara is Superman's cousin. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
yeah. I guess now you said that makes sense. That maybe that's his way of not acknowledging who she is all the way through. It's like you're just Corey, you're just a girl. You're not Starfire.
Yeah,
You're
I
not
mean,
a
Starfire's a funny one because, like, most famously, she's known as kind of being a little bit ditzy and kind of unusual in the Teen Titans and Teen Titans Go cartoons. But you know, she is quite a sexual being. She kisses people to learn their language. You know, she wears a bit of skimpy outfit.
I was going to say
very
she's certainly
sexualized.
drawn in a particular way. This is a very much
cheesecake fan servicey type thing definitely going on.
There's not much clothing and there is a lot of boobage.
I think their adventure is the least interesting because they fight a puddle.
Well, I hear you, but I actually that's the part I really like because, as I said, when we were discussing it is so otherworldly. I thought that was really interesting, and that Superman hits things really hard. Essentially, Superman's battle is that thing hits him a bit, and then he hits it back. It's like a wrestling match, right? Whereas in theirs, there has to be a little bit more kind of there's a tactical battle going on, and she actually obviously shows that she's not just ditzy and smart in how she overcomes it in the end, because the two Adam Strange and Light Ray that do just want to be better, bigger, stronger, faster, both get knocked out. They get knocked unconscious. So I don't know. It's interesting. We're kind of quite different in that way. So that's why I quite enjoy. I like the otherworldly blue goo.
Yeah.
How do you fight that?
It's petroleum, isn't it? It's kind of a petroleum. Just to clarify, each planet that they go to, the aspect has possessed a person and is affecting that planet in a different way. So in Ran, so with the Light Ray and Starfire adventure, it's turned everybody's gone mad, basically. Everyone has gone insane. So they're all like a guy hurls himself off a building, and then Light Ray catches him, and then he punches him in the face, and then falls to his death and dies. And he's like, he wanted to fall, and then they have to kind of investigate it, and they've been given these kind of guns that will capture the aspect for
I'm not a massive fan of that element.
Yeah, they don't use them though either. I think Superman's the only. Yeah, exactly. Every single one of them are broken, so it's kind of pointless anyway. I think Superman's the only one that actually uses it and successfully.
Yeah, but that's part of the problem. I think I didn't really buy into it. This idea here's this. I've magically invented this ray gun that will suck their essence in, and if you break that one gun, you're fucked. But that's not a great plan.
Not really, not a great. But we know Darkseid has another a wild card in the.
We do, but he doesn't want the anti-life entity to take over the galaxy, does he? Because the Milky Way, because that's a problem for him too.
Yeah, true, I guess. But I guess he's thinking maybe even if we lose one,
desperate measures, right?
Yeah, true. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because they find Adam Strange, and he has the idea of Adam Strange is there's a bit of technology which transports him randomly, or it's like a Zeta ray or something. It transports him back and forth to a planet. Very, very John Carter type type character. And he falls in love there and is friends with her father. And yeah, so it's a whole thing. But that's his kind of idea. He's kind of just like a space adventurer type thing. But he's captured them and tied them up and goes on. But I do feel like I think it's done very well in regards to it's moody, it's dark, and it's kind of almost like Alien or something. Like it's just lots of dark corridors and creepy things, and they can't find it. And Light Ray has to change his kind of perspective to look at a different kind of what's the word, spectrum of light to find it, what the aspect is doing. But then it just seems to be like Starfire's knocked out, Adam's knocked out, Light Ray's knocked out. Starfire's knocked out.
Starfire
Adam's
knocked out though, is she?
No, true. She's playing.
No, I hear. It also falls foul of that thing of light rays flying around, and I know it's of the time, but light rays flying around, and we are just having to read every single fucking thought that is going through his head. I'm in some caves now. Shall I change my vision? I wonder if that's a good idea. I've got a bunch of vision. Yeah. I'm going to use my spectral range vision. Now I can see it. We get it. Just fly around and then show me a panel where that changes. It's a little bit, but his again isn't the only story that does that. Superman does that at one point. He's like, I could do this, and then I will do that, and I could do this, and here's a power, and now I do this. And
like Green Lantern is going to fucking town on that. By the way. Just wait till we get to that story. But Green Lantern is going hell for leather on his fucking explaining his own powers and how cool they are and how good they are.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think my issue with the I think the battle itself, I don't think is not terribly uninteresting. And again, it's something a bit different. I think what's good about this is when they did the first like Justice League animated story episodes, Bruce Timm and Paul Dini and all those guys had never done like a team up before, and never done a show about multiple characters. It always had a lead character like Superman or Batman Beyond. So when they had a team, kind of had to work out what a team show would be, they really struggled. But in the first episodes, they had all the teams separating into pairs, much like in this, and they had them going off, and they all have to destroy these like white Martian nodes or something that are destroying the Earth or going to terraform the Earth or something. And the main mistake that Bruce Timm said they made was that they made the mission all the same for each set of characters. Right. So it wasn't very interesting. So they wish they'd varied it up, like they had to do a slightly different mission or a slightly different mission, a slightly different mission, instead of them all doing the exact same thing. And I think they do that here quite well, because they're similar, but they're different enough where you can still kind of enjoy them and get on with them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't mind the Prattalion thing. I did think it was like, seriously fighting a puddle here? Is this what we're doing? But yeah, Starfire, like you said, is unconscious or pretending to be unconscious, and then she uses her kind of flame effect that comes out the back of her hair to set the Prattalion being on fire, because it's able to dodge her when it thinks she's conscious, and that destroys the bomb that they've made. So the bomb, all the aspects create a bomb, and that's going to destroy the planet, and again lead to the collapsing of the Milky Way galaxy. But they managed to stop that.
Well, the bomb it's like an antimatter bomb, isn't it? Like collapses the planet, which will then send it out of its orbit, so it then destroys the galaxy that it's within, isn't it? Yeah, I hear you. I think there's pros and cons to this one. It's an interesting one, and I think everything you said is absolutely correct. And I guess just we've read it we've just got different things. I quite like them fighting a puddle. I didn't mind.
Sure. Hey, it's something different. It's a big swing. Like it or not, like it or loathe it, it's a big swing.
I will say, characters going off in little teams to do special missions sounds an awful lot like one of the most successful movies of all time, doesn't it? Superhero characters having to go off and do like little 2-person missions on different planets in order to make sure this really big, terrible apocalyptic event doesn't happen. There was a little bit of Endgame going on. Well, obviously, there's a little bit of Cosmic Odyssey going on in Endgame. Yes,
absolutely. Well, I mean, Jim Starlin cameos in that film.
Oh right, okay, yeah, I didn't know that.
Jim Starlin, because he's in the self-help group with Cap at the beginning.
Oh, is he? Okay, all right.
Yeah, that's Jim Starlin, because he created Thanos, and fair play to Starlin, like Thanos is the lead character in all of his books because he's the most interesting character. Like, he's very rarely like, it gets to a point where he's like, I'm not writing Captain Marvel, I'm not writing Adam Warlock anymore. I'm just writing Thanos. I killed those guys off. I'm just.
It's interesting. You said you thought Batman was the lead here. I think you could argue Darkseid's the lead here actually.
True.
So
yeah.
That's a trend that's continued here as well. Yeah.
And so that's one planet saved out of our teams. Let's talk about the Orion one. No, go on.
Sure.
Sorry,
I was just saying it's a bit of a risky tactic, isn't it? Like set the petroleum aspects on fire, blow up the bomb. You don't actually know if blowing up the bomb is gonna. But I guess again, it's needs must. There's a countdown. Like it's going to win anyway. So all of these missions again, there's a lot of risk in what they choose to do. We're about to talk about the Superman one, like how that's resolved is like, I'm just going to do this because I'm Superman. And like, whoa, fuck Superman. No, maybe just check how this bomb works first.
I'm just going to destroy it.
Okay. Yeah,
I'm just going to melt it. Maybe there's a fail safe that makes it go off automatically. Or something.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we go to Thanagar, which is the Hawkman, Hawkgirl, Hawkwoman's world. Again, a very warlike race, kind of a fascist race as well. And the aspect takes control of the army, basically, because it's trying to take control of the most powerful thing on each planet, and which we'll get to, sort of, but it varies. So Orion theorizes that him being a warrior, born and bred, he theorizes that he'll control the army. And they go and they have this huge battle, and Superman's like, maybe just pull it back a little bit, Orion. You seem to be pretty brutal and pretty unforgiving. He's like, we're at war, Superman. I don't give a fuck. Again, this is the son of Darkseid, remember, as well. So, the apple might not fall far from the tree, let's say, in this particular story. So we have like that one big battle. And then later on, and again, they clearly, and again, what I like in this story is that they are very different characters, like very kind of black and white.
Yeah.
And the conflict is there. I think that's interesting.
That is true, and I agree with that. But I think then they make the mistake of splitting them up. So I
True.
get why they do it for the story, and I really like that idea. And I think that could have been pushed, because you're right. That moment when Superman's like knocking people out, and he turns around and Orion is like obliterating people, and it's like, whoa, hang on, there's a different way to do this. I think that could have been deepened and continued and evolved. And whereas Superman kind of goes, hang on, I've got an idea.
Yeah.
And then Orion flies off on that weird little space harness thing he's got. There's a hilarious panel when those two fly off together, and Superman looks cool as fuck doing his normal Superman like flying pose. Yeah, exactly. And Orion's in this weird little. He looks like somebody doing like
harness kind of thing.
It's like,
yeah,
you know,
I don't know how
power
to describe
walking with
that.
those poles. People like walk on in the grass or like along streets. It was a popular thing for our people like doing power walking. He looks like those people. Odd.
He does. Yeah, no, I agree. It's kind of like I think it's an astro
harness. They call it.
Yeah, I think it's an astro. I think you're right. Yeah, I've not done my research. I was like, it's astro something, but yeah, it does look weird. It is a bit odd. It looks a bit flimsy.
It's like another shit maybe without a toilet.
Astro shitter.
Yeah.
The astro crapper. Another link to kind of Mike Mignola and this story and stuff is Orion is actually played in the Justice League cartoons by Ron Perlman, who would go on to be Hellboy as well. And there are some scenes that are like literally, I think there's one called Twilight where the scenes from this kind of like fully picked. There's one particular strong moment which is fully picked out of this story and used there, even though it's not quite the same story. But yeah, so again, they find the kind of main fortress for the anti-life aspect, and it's possessed like this giant robot, of course, and Superman has to destroy it. But he tunnels down. There's a really good line where like Orion's like, "I don't know how you survived this long, you Boy Scout type thing," which I quite enjoyed. He was like, "This is war. There's going to be casualties. There's going to be people that will die. We are fighting for the universe, basically." So, and I kind of was like, he might somewhat have a point to a degree, but Superman's like, he digs down instead of attacking it full frontal. He digs down and tries to find using his X-ray vision and all the spectrums he can see again. That lovely.
Speaking of full frontal, yeah. X-ray vision of full frontal, absolutely.
Of course. Finds the bomb and finds the giant robot. Defeats the giant robot. And like you said, obliterated, like just disables the bomb with his heat vision.
It's a bit like the Destroyer, isn't it, from Thor?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, again, another Kirby creation, another great Paul joke, another Kirby character, and again, it's all there for us. This kind of lovely Kirby imagery, which I always adore. Yes, and he defeats it, and then before this, he asks Orion to distract the army, the Thanagarians. Superman emerges from victorious. He captures the aspect in the gun, the only one to do that, disables the bomb, calls Highfather, says, "We'll be back in a minute for tea. Get the kettle on." And then returns to the top, into the surface level of Thanagar to find a complete genocide committed by Orion. What did you feel to this? Again, this is your least favorite adventure. So how did you feel? How was this resolved?
Well, I like the moment when Superman's like, "No, Orion, you go back and like glory in your victory. I'm going to stay here. There's dead to be buried." That's a really powerful moment. I really liked that. But I think now we've been talking about it more, I think I can see the value in some of the things I hadn't seen when I was first reading it. But I think for me, the mistake is the splitting up of them. The payoff is great. I get that. But it's just, and I hate to be that guy who's speaking about Superman in that way, because I don't feel this way all the time. But in this comic, in this section, it is just Superman. There is no threat to Superman whatsoever. This thing never feels like a threat. We said it felt like a threat to Batman. We said that although it's a little bit like you're knocked out with Adam Strange and with Light Ray, it felt like there's a good chance they were going to lose that battle. Whereas here, never once did I think anything was going to go wrong.
And even when he gets decked by Darkseid, again, it's more of a humorous moment, and he doesn't look really like he's not back and he's set back and he's like kind of a bit stunned, but he
Mm,
doesn't look like he's hurt or
mm.
damaged or in danger. It's just like, oh, that was a fucking good punch. I'm coming for you.
Yeah. I mean, his
Yeah, it's
cape
kind
gets
of
a bit ripped. That's it.
you
And
know,
as you said, there are real consequences for a lot of other people in this comic. And I think,
yeah,
Superman is interesting when you create consequences for him. And I guess the consequence here is the moral ones, isn't it? That he
yes,
chose to
yeah.
go off and to split the team up, and now he has to deal. But I don't know. I think that the payoff is good, but they would have to have delved into that more, I think, to have made this a more
Yeah.
interesting arc.
I think you don't have the fight when they first arrive because
Mm.
they immediately get into kind of just a
Mhm.
random fight.
Mhm.
I think you nix that. You have them together. You have them searching, looking, talking to each other, trying to figure out, talking to Mother Box, because the Mother Box is quite a handy little tool which they kind of very rarely use in this. So that's kind of a big thing because it's connected to the source, which is
Mhm.
kind of the life. It's the Force basically. It's Star Wars ripped off the New Gods. The source is the Force. Darkseid. There's more connections I could go into, but I won't. A hero that's the son of Darkseid, a strange son. There's loads of connections. Look them up. Go read them. There's multitude, but yeah, he's never really harmed. There's never he's a bit square in this. I'll be honest. Superman,
Mm.
but yeah, I think you don't have that initial fight. And then you have them discussing, do stuff, talk about how they are, who they are, what they do, what they should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing, have arguments, disagreements. And then you get to the city, you start the all-out battle, and then Superman goes, this isn't getting us anywhere. You hold them at bay, I'll find the bomb.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And then
because you
that's
sort of
when
get a repeat of the same thing twice, don't you? From having
yeah,
that first
exactly.
fight.
Because it's the same thing. It's like, oh, you're a bit brutal. Yes, I'm a bit brutal, but I don't care. And then later on, it's the repeat, but it's obviously a much it's a genocide basically of this whole city, Thanagarian city. So yeah, that would be my suggestion for that story.
Yeah,
You
that would
just
have made it
don't
better.
repeat this because you can still get that idea because you're already kind of getting the idea that he's a bit of an asshole anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll, even before we leave New Genesis, we kind of get a sense that Orion's a dick. And then even more so when we get to Thanagar and come back.
Yeah,
All right.
maybe that's why his
what
Astro
was?
Harness looks like a crapper because he's such an asshole. Mm.
Yeah, he's just a shit. That's why.
What
Just
I
a
will say
complete
just before we
shit.
move on is that again, like the drawing, like we're being a bit critical of this part, but the drawing
Yeah,
of
sure.
the battle between the Destroyer and Superman looks
Yeah.
amazing again, and I really love the onomatopoeia throughout this. Like the sound words that you get coming up in the panels.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you can clear this up for me. Is that the letterer that does that, or is that the artist? Does the letterer just do
Question.
sound like speech bubbles and dialogue boxes? I don't know, and I've even tried to have a little internet search. I don't know what the right answer is.
I think it might depend. I think it might depend on who's doing it, whether they prefer to do it. I feel like it's probably a letterer, but I feel like maybe the writer has an input in the kind of sounds that come out.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, of course.
Some characters have specific sounds like thwip, snicked, boom for the boom tubes.
Yeah,
You need to kind of have
the booms are amazing in this comic.
Yeah, so good.
Some of them are like
good.
3D coming out the page. Like I love how they draw like how it changes the color of the panel. But yeah, like the onomatopoeia here and in the earlier fight with Batman and the Parademon, I think particularly stand out. Really well done in terms of like the way they come out with the noises and what you can really hear them. But how they change the font and the display of the writing in the panels, I think it is super work.
I think again, it's another battle in shadow as well, which I think
That's
really
true.
works. I think Mignola does those really, really well. Like Hellboy is like littered with those kind of fight sequences and battles and stuff. So yeah, if you like that, then you'll be at home there. But yeah, I think this is for me, it's one of the strongest stories, but again, has its problems along with the Light Ray and Starfire one. But we're getting to the juicy stuff now. So
Yeah.
you ready to talk about Zanshi? Yes, okay.
Green Lantern and Martian Manhunter.
two green Johns together
Mm.
teaming up. I don't know if it's for the first time or the last time or whatever, but it's a memorable one to say the least. So we have they are going to Zanshi, which apparently, again, a bit of humor in this is that they arrive on Zanshi, Martian Manhunter and Green Lantern, and it seems like Green Lantern doesn't, like, Martian Manhunter doesn't know Green Lantern very well because he seems to be quite amazed by his powers and the versatility of the ring,
Oh
the
my
Green
God.
Lantern ring, which again John likes to go on and on and on and on about, but but there's a point to this. There's a point to that. So
Yeah.
which we will get to. So I get it with Light Ray, it's a criticism, and I get it with Superman, it's criticism, but here it kind of serves a purpose. So they're on Zanshi. The first thing they arrive, and John's like, "Did you say this is a cannibal planet?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's something, isn't it? That's something." And that's basically how that issue ends, or kind of they're all landing on the different planets, arriving on the different planets. And that's how that one ends. And you're like, shit, what's happening next? And again, the aspect on this planet gives everyone a disease, gives everyone like a really virulent, disease, like a communicable disease. And everyone's got it. And again, the you wouldn't think that they would stop to kind of help, because you're like, well, we're against the clock here, we need to do stuff. But Green Lantern and Martian Manhunter do actually try and help these people, which they didn't necessarily have to do, given that the universe is at stake. I thought that was a really nice kind of moment. And this is kind of where we begin to see the ability. So the Green Lantern ring basically is magic at this point.
It's a bit. I'll be honest. I know it has a point later. It's a bit much for me.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, fair enough. They are laying it. He is laying it on thick. How brilliant this ring is, and Martian Manhunter's reaction is a little bit too much. It's a little bit like, wow, oh my god, it does this.
He's just like, I'll make this magic elixir now. Everyone will be cured from your blood. I will hack into this computer. Oh yeah, I got exactly what I need on my first try. And just, oh fuck me. I get it.
Yeah.
Like, you're right. It becomes relevant and important later on.
Yeah,
but still.
But
these are the things which I sometimes struggle with. Like, so you've got Superman who's like invulnerable. You've got Green Lantern who can imagine anything.
I do have an issue later, which we'll get to with the final planet. We have that, and again we find out as well that it's taking control of like the weather station, or this weather control kind of thing, and it's affecting the seismology of the Earth and the Zanshi. Again, there's a reason you've probably not heard of this planet. We'll get into it. So, and it starts creating volcanoes and things, and John, the Martian Manhunter, John Jones, is vulnerable to fire. So he starts kind of being like, "Ah, shit, no," and again, they're in this protective cube that John Stewart has created. The Green Lantern is like, "Don't worry about it. I've got it. I can do this. I can do that. I can do this." And eventually they get to a point where Martian Manhunter can't carry on because Martian Manhunter's weakness to fire is either physical or it's a psychic thing. It depends on the interpretation, but he has a weakness to fire, so he can't carry on. And then John's like, "Right, I'm going to send you off," and he sends him in like the protective cube, and he sends him away. And Martian Manhunter's like, "What are you doing? You don't know what you're going into. You're being arrogant. You're full of yourself. What are you doing? You don't know what you're going to encounter in there." And he's like, "Don't worry about it. I'm the Green Lantern. I can do anything." Blah, blah, blah.
Which kind of echoes what Adam Strange does as well, doesn't it? Like both those characters.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little bit kind of cocksure kind of characters. There's a Light Ray a little bit as well. There's a little bit of there.
That's true. Yeah.
I think there's a lot of it in a lot of the characters, but I think that's where they kind of fall down, and that's where the weaknesses in the teams is often the team ups. But we have John arrives and he's like, "Right, I'm going to take down the aspect. I've got the gun." Because that's it. They lose with the gun, and he just creates a new gun, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's
another
right.
Thing he does. It just goes, "Oh, don't worry about it. I made a new one. It's fine. Off we go."
But this is where it bothers me a little bit. Just go like, "Oh, there is no bomb." Just go like, "There is no." Anyway.
So he arrives and he's just about to. He's got the gun in hand. He's found the location. And it's literally just a guy. The aspect has just possessed a random guy, like no special, not a robot, not a pool of petroleum, just a guy. But the guy has painted the bomb yellow, which at this point. They didn't really go into the explanation of the yellow impurity in the Green Lantern, battery in Oa. They didn't explain what that is. Later on, it'd be the Parallax version and the Fear Demon thing, entity, whatever you want to call it. But at this point, it's just yellow, and he paints it yellow. And John goes, "Oh fuck!" basically, and literally can't do anything. Its ring is useless because that's its weakness. Like John Jones has his weakness against fire. This is his weakness. The planet blows up. It gets absolutely obliterated. John is protected. John Jones is protected in the Green Lantern cube. The Green Lantern ring won't let any harm come to John Stewart because it's got this protective aura around him. So Xanshi is obliterated. Everybody dies, and it's John Stewart's fault. And John Jones lets him know about it.
Oh, he does later, yeah. Which is, we'll have to talk about that. I mean, a planet had to go, didn't it?
Yeah.
And this is quite a bold decision, and maybe this is up there. We're coming back to not Endgame, but to Infinity War. Maybe this is, I still can't watch Infinity War with the Star-Lord Peter Quill moment hitting Thanos and take it seriously. It really bothers me. He just, in my opinion, he just wouldn't have done that in that moment. It really jolts me out of the movie. I guess he can't do anything about it because of the green yellow, and something, like we say, something had to go. And it's the way they draw the moment with the explosion, you kind of just sort of see part skeleton, part kind of, it's like T2. Like, we watch T2, and that moment when you see the nuclear bomb go off in LA and Sarah Connor's holding on to the wire fence, it's actually really harrowing. It really stays with you.
Yeah.
This panel really stays with you. It's a really harrowing moment, seeing the people kind of disintegrate, I suppose, is what's happening to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Yeah, they've just been cured of their disease, only to be blown up, and they've dealt with volcanoes and earthquakes, and now the planet was basically fucked anyway. But now it's absolutely gone.
Well, there is no planet.
There is no planet; it's gone. And again, they kind of again communicate back. They're all of them are in communication with each other to a degree, and Batman and Forager and all the other characters, Highfather and Darkseid, and yeah, so they kind of message back, but he's like, John Jones is really hammering it home how fucking fucked up this is, and it's you. Now, this is one thing that is still canon in DC Comics. So John Stewart, after this moment, it kind of made him become much more serious. He's a military man. He's an architect. So that from then on, he took his role as a Green Lantern very seriously. Before, he was kind of initially a replacement. He was initially quite an angry guy because that's, Green Lantern, Green Arrow was saying some political things about a black man being a Green Lantern. Then when he did come back in the kind of Len Wein era, kind of mid to late 70s, he was kind of a bit more of a kind of, chill kind of cool dude. And again, quite fallible and vulnerable and, going through stuff. And then I think kind of around this time, they start kind of playing around with who he's going to be and what he's going to be. But yeah, this is still, whether Cosmic Odyssey in total is still in canon, I don't believe so. But this particular moment was a very big deal, and he even had people come and take revenge on him because he destroyed this planet.
Right. Okay.
Kind of other Green Lanterns that had been from that planet come along and be like, what the fuck, dude? Like, what the fuck? So yeah, it's a very interesting moment, and again, it gets more interesting towards the end. But I don't want to talk about that just yet.
No, fair enough.
What happens with John and John?
Actually, their story ends in issue 2, doesn't it? And they're not in issue 3 at all.
Yeah, because
I know we're talking about in terms of like the parents.
Yeah, sure.
But their part of it is almost self-contained to one issue, isn't it? And then
correct. Yeah,
we come back.
It's pretty much the whole issue is pretty much them. Again, each issue kind of darts back and forth between all the missions. I just think I think it's just easier to talk about. Just the separate missions. But yeah, so that mission is an absolute bust. So it only takes one more planet to go. So 2 planets have been saved, but we still have planet Earth. But before we talk about planet Earth, I want to talk about Darkseid and Highfather's other plan that they've got in motion. So we learn that Jason Blood is an old man here. So Jason Blood has, at this point, I'm not sure of the storyline, but he's been separated from his alter ego, Etrigan the Demon, who is the half brother of Merlin, and they were merged together as a kind of a curse that put on Jason Blood for, I think it was betraying Camelot or to Morgan Le Fay, I believe, if I remember rightly, or maybe something else. Depends on the continuity. But Jason Blood is now free, and he's an old man. He's going to die an old man. But Darkseid needs them to combine with the demon again to unleash their kind of elemental eldritch power and directly confront the anti-life entity in its own dimension, basically. That's their kind of backup plan. What did you think to this kind of like storyline?
Oh, did I see it coming? No, I mean, it's good. I mean, Highfather himself says also, like, I know this fucking dude's up to something. So, I mean, everyone saw it coming. It's interesting. I know Etrigan from the Hitman comics, the Garth Ennis Hitman comic.
Okay, yeah.
And I can never decide whether I find his rhyming talk clever or just really annoying. But yeah, I mean, I think it's an aspect of the story which had to happen. I think it's really interesting when they do go over into the anti-life equation universe, whatever that's called. I'm not sure. I think that's a really interesting sequence of events. There is a massive spoiler on the front of comic number 4 on the actual cover.
I think it's the same image, I think.
Yeah. But, you know, that's a choice. So, yeah, I like it. I think I like how we keep coming back to it. I think it's really well paced. It's almost like a little stinger at the end of each issue. At the end of issue 1, like all the teams go off and it's like, these guys are still here. And then at end of issue 2, it's like, now we will combine you. And then, so yeah, I quite like the idea that it's like a secondary story. It's like a subplot that's going on, which is just slowly burning away, that everyone saw coming, but also becomes vital to the mission anyway.
I quite like again, they're like, we are asking you to do something that you absolutely don't want to do.
Yeah,
and Jason Blood's like,
yeah,
and he's like, I've lived my life. I'm hundreds and thousands of years old. I'm going to finally die a human, and you're asking me to do this. And they're like, we wouldn't ask you to do it if it wasn't, you know, important or necessary. And I thought that was, and again, it isn't something he makes lightly. It isn't something like they immediately expect him to make that decision, but they do. Later on, you do kind of see him sat there and he kind of almost misses Etrigan. There's like a connection there, like they are brothers, or that they've lived in each other's shadow for so long that there is like a genuine, almost kind of affection for this literal rhyming demon from hell that he has. You know, there's a bond there, and again, Etrigan is shown to be weaker and not as muscular as he usually is. He's kind of emaciated. So yeah, it's really like heartfelt and kind of like really somber. And again, the moments that are really somber and really are sad and really are depressing. But then the funny moments are really funny, and the action is amazing. And yeah, it's a really fun book on the whole. But I love when they kind of because Darkseid is just going to do it anyway, whether Highfather's there or not. He's going to do it, and he says to Etrigan, it's like, we'll take over, we'll make a deal, and we'll rule. And again, I love the little cord he keeps to like the other dimension that just is just like cut off in midair, which reminds me of the kind of negative zone and when Reed Richards would go and he'd have to have like a lead to back.
It's like a tether, isn't it? Yeah,
tether. That's the term I was looking for. So I like that. And again, like Darkseid's like, I've made all the calculations. I can't be wrong. I know what I'm doing. Gets in there and goes, oh fuck, I miscalculated massively. It's like shit. And then he tries to seal the. I think he seals himself, or tries to seal the anti-life entity in its own dimension, because
he's trying to get back, isn't he?
That was it.
In order to then seal it off, but at the same time, the entity which escaped. No, the aspect which escaped from.
Oh yeah, one of the aspects gets away. That's right. From light ray. I think it was the light ray. Yeah, I think it's the light ray.
Comes down the tether, doesn't it?
That's right. Yeah, and then kind of does it blow him up or something, or injure them?
I think it breaks it as it comes down. It then breaks the tether, doesn't it? So now they're stuck.
They're vulnerable. Yeah,
and the entity is able to get through the fissure that he's made. Yeah,
that's right. But Batman knew that Darkseid was going to betray them, so he put in a call. He put in a call to somebody, and I don't know why, but I immediately thought it was Robin for some reason, like he could help. But actually, it's Dr. Fate.
Alfred, make Darkseid a suit that he can wear in the anti-life equation zone.
Quick,
it needs to be seen in the dark. Quick.
But again, like Robin might have been dead at this point, so maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Wherever I don't know when this book came out, earlier in the year, later in the year, but yeah, he was probably dead by this point. But yeah, and then he comes in and he's joined. He brings Highfather. He's already talked to Highfather about this. Orion's back because he committed genocide and was like, piss off, and Superman's burying all the dead. And then they all combine their powers that are controlled by Dr. Fate. He kind of puppeteers them, including Darkseid, and is trying to destroy the entity, but can't. Again, not powerful enough to destroy this being, which is literal anti-life, like this black, gooey, horrible thing, like something out of Fern Gully or something. Whatever.
It
That
sort of looks like a
being
giant
is.
Slender Man.
Yeah, a little
Anti-life
bit. There's a
Slender
bit of
Man.
that. But what's really interesting is that Dr. Fate kind of retreats into another dimension and then destroys that dimension. And he says, like, I don't know if there's anything existing in here.
It's like the
but it needs
bridging.
to be
It's like
done.
the bridge between the anti-life and
Yeah.
ours, isn't it? Yes, he's the only way to
So the
stop it is to
dimension
stop this
between.
bridge.
Exactly. So yeah, he destroys. But it's basically a universe or a dimension or an existing, a place that could be teeming with life, seemingly. But he's like, no, got to destroy it. So another bit of genocide in a book with a lot of genocide. It's just so much genocide in one book.
I don't know if there were deadlines that they were reaching, but there's a funny moment in this section that I had to write down. So you've got, you're right, the 5 of them. It looks really cool on the page. That's why it's such a spoiler. They stuck that on the bloody cover, and it's on the back of the collected edition as well. But anyway, so they're in this like pentagram of power. Yes. And then you've got, like, as you said, Dr. Fate saying, like, we're now all going to combine. I will lead through my, like, connection to intellects. And Highfather, I'm just going to read it now. Like, Highfather adds to the pentagram with his connection to the source. And then he says something about, I haven't written this bit down, he says something about Darkseid and Etrigan. Etrigan's got the magic, as you said. And I can't remember what he says to Darkseid. But before he gets there, he's like, Highfather has his connection to the source, as does Orion with his connection to the same. Surely you can come up with 5 different things. It's like, if you've got 4, you just need one more. We've got like intellect, source.
If you said like he's the child of light and darkness and balances the equation.
Absolutely. But it's like starting to like, oh fuck, I can't think of anything. Yeah, he's the same.
It's basically a connection to the source as well. I don't know.
Shit.
He's got genocide. He's got genocide as a superpower. That's what he's got.
It only really stands out because the rest of that whole sequence and that scene is excellent, and the drawing is brilliant, and like they look like they're really floating in this kind of like this black void of nothing. Like it's an amazing moment, and it's just like, yeah, he's the same. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a shame.
It does let the balloon out a little bit at the end, doesn't it? It's like
it does, yeah.
It's just like, and yeah, he does the same. Like, just take Superman in instead. Just have Superman come back.
That's it, exactly.
And take him in, and then go his Kryptonian might or blah blah blah. Like literally anything else. He could have written literally anything else.
That's what I mean. Deadlines or laziness. I'm not sure anything would have been better.
I think it was just, I agree. So they're unable to defeat it, but they managed to keep it sealed within its dimension. And I love the moment where most of the heroes have returned at this point to New Genesis, and Darkseid takes issue with Dr. Fate puppeteering him. He's like, "You made a puppet of me! How dare you! How very dare you!" And he's like, "Yeah, well, if you want to take it up with him, you got to take it up with all of us." And Superman's there, and all the other heroes that are not Forager and Batman. They are all there, and then he apologizes. Which I thought was so strange. He was like, I was a bit out of line there. Sorry. I might be the Dark Lord of Evil.
Yeah, he says something. Evil. Yeah, he says like, I was a bit like caught up in the moment or something, doesn't he? Yeah, you're right.
And I was like, it's kind of funny because it's just like, it just seems like, even if he stormed off, it would have been better than, sorry about that. It just seems a bit odd. Like, I know that he's like mixing with the heroes a bit more than maybe he's showing a softer side or something, but it just seems really weird to hear like Darkseid say, sorry. Sorry. It's just weird. I don't know why, but yeah, so let's get to the finale, so to speak, of this, the final adventure. It is Forager, who is a character who there is on New Genesis. There is a floating city where all the gods live. Below that, in the regular kind of the planet, there is a kind of bugs, or kind of bug-like insect
Orion calls
humanoids.
him an insect, doesn't he? Yeah.
Yes, I believe he's adopted. I think Forager is adopted by the insects because he's not.
Oh, they mentioned
technically
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's not technically an insect, but he lives among them.
It's like a
and
Tarzan
that's
kind of situation.
yeah, type of thing, type of character, and and again, a very Kirby-esque design, very unusual, very odd and interesting. I do like the design on the shield. I'm quite fond of that. And he teams up with Batman, and Orion is very racist, let's say, to the bugs. He thinks they're nothing. He thinks they're low, and he even makes a comment about how their power level is pretty poor in their particular team up. But this is again been calculated by Highfather, been calculated by Darkseid, that this is the most effective team, and they're sent back to Earth, and that's where Batman gives Dr. Fate the phone call. And then they're off to the Batcave, and like you said, to give Forager a new upgrade, a glow up, yeah. Yeah, I mean, all it is turning the white in his costume into black. Though, really, there's not that much different to it. It's like, hey, what do you think? And it's like, it's fine. And I like. There's a moment where they're trying to find out, because again, the Aspect wants to take charge of the most powerful thing on the planet, and Forager's like, yes, it must be the nuclear arsenal. Batman's like, nah, it's computers, mate. It's computers.
No, you'd think that when you start.
And that's kind of, I'll be honest, that's kind of what I was like, yeah, it's probably going to be that, because that's the obvious thing. But I quite like it subverted my expectations that, Batman's a detective. He knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's doing. And then they find it in, was it Moose Jaw, Arizona? I think it's where they go. I can't remember what it exactly is where they go. I think it's like a military base or something. But like you said, they are in broad daylight in these black costumes running around. And then very, very quickly, we kind of flash over to the demon that we saw earlier in the book with a giant hole in him.
Yeah.
He's still there. He's still alive. He's been possessed by the Aspect. And the policeman that was apparently dead is there assisting him setting up the bomb. And yeah, I think that I can't remember how they use the computers to their advantage. I can't remember. Or do they go to a place that has a lot of computers? I'm struggling to remember.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I think
kind of doesn't matter, really.
It doesn't matter, really, no, if I'm honest.
Nah.
And this is that panel, the page that you said you really like, with all the panels of the countdown, wasn't it?
Yes.
With all the timers. Because that's the end of issue 3, isn't it? Into issue 4.
That is the end of issue 3, yeah. So we get that, and you think, this is it. And then you go into issue 4, and you can just see them in the shadows again, using their costumes to their advantage, like deciphering and kind of disarming the bomb. And then the big aliens
around
like
the back of the bomb, haven't they? Essentially,
yeah, and just like, and he's like, and they're pressing the button like, why isn't it blowing up? All hail the anti-life, all hail the anti-life god. And they're like, why isn't it working? And eventually they discover, and it is probably the most fucking brutal fight in the entire book. Like,
there's some really cool moments in this.
Yeah, really, really, really cool. And again, this is a book of brutal moments. And arguably, this is the most brutal one of all of it. What did you think to this whole section?
Yeah, I really like it. I think as soon as it starts, you can imagine if this was a cartoon, if it's an animation or a live action. This is like the pace of this section would be so fast. Like, you got Batman leaping out the shadows, and it feels like a real classic kind of Batman pose. It's exactly in my head as what I think Batman looks like as he leaps out the shadows at Bester, at that possessed cop. And then again, there's that real sense of threat, isn't there? Because how do you defeat these two things that are already dead? And yeah, Batman gets absolutely whooped, gets his leg fractured, doesn't he?
Almost immediately.
Yeah. Parademon sort of catches him, smashes him on the floor, stamps on his leg, and he's standing up and he's strangling him, isn't he? And Batman's blacking out, and that the drawing of that is amazing. You've got like the way that it goes from like, it's like almost like Batman's point of view, isn't it? Like his perspective. Like he's seeing the Parademon's face, and it's blurry, and then it's black with some red spots, and then it's really clever. And at the same time, you've got Forager, who is going to join the fight, but really doesn't have. And interesting, I guess, is backing up what Ryan was saying. Doesn't have the power set to defeat this thing, and he ends up with an even worse fate than Batman. But before he gets there, he has that really cool moment that we were talking about earlier, how this Parademon has had this hole blown in him by this ray. Forager's fighting him, he's using his cool shield. He takes off Bester's head, doesn't he? Decapitates this possessed zombied human. It's pretty badass. Batman's sort of watching him and like, whoa, okay, that's cool. Batman doesn't say anything about the death of this Bester guy, by the way. He's just like, yeah, all right, because he's down on the floor at this point, isn't he? Yeah, he takes out the leg of the parademon, doesn't he? Then hits him in the face with the shield, like almost splitting him in half. But he's still there defending the bomb, so he has to figure out a way of being able to get to it. So he takes a running dive through the hole in the middle of the parademon in order to get to like the kind of deactivate, because they've managed to reactivate the bomb, haven't they?
Yeah,
in order to
that's
get
correct.
the deactivate button. It's a really, really brilliant moment.
Yeah, wonderful. And yeah, I think what you were saying as well, like Batman's being strangled, and he's bringing me to the realm of the anti-life.
That's
like,
right.
Yeah, it's basically the end of life is anti-life, which it's quite a literal way of viewing it, but it works for me if he wants to do it like that. But yeah, it's really and again, like Forager's shown to be, I think, a little bit stronger and can take a bit more damage and deal a bit more damage because he's like an alien creature and he's technically maybe a new god, but he's not Orion, he's not Light Ray, he's not Highfather or Darkseid or any of the other new god characters. He is, for all intents and purposes, a very human character.
Yeah, he's sort of their Batman, really, I guess, isn't he?
Yeah, effectively, yeah. He's not. He doesn't seem to be able to kind of match with the other characters like Batman. You could arguably say he's the odd one out. So it's more his show than Batman's show. Batman is basically disabled throughout the fight. He does get some licks in and he helps and he shouts and distracts and stuff, but he's effectively like, he's not getting out a gadget. He's not doing any of this. He's literally like just trying to stay conscious. That's what he's trying to do. He's trying to guide and assist where he can, Forager to complete the mission. And we learned that like Bester's a robot, which I was like, okay, sure, he's a robot. I thought he was like a zombie
weird.
Or something.
Yeah.
But I was kind of like, I kind of didn't care by that point. I was like, the parademon is my focus. I don't care about the robot. But like, you might as well.
I guess because they decapitated him, they had to then have him not be human.
Yeah, I guess because they've already got because they couldn't find.
That's probably a bit too harsh. It's like decapitating. A human zombified host is probably a bit pushing.
To be honest, I think at this point I didn't really care when it comes to the missing cop. At this point, I wasn't really. They did seem to keep a focus on the missing cop, so I was kind of like. But then later on, they're like, "Well, I would possess the parademon because it's a more powerful entity. I wouldn't possess this cop because he's dead anyway." I was kind of like, "Why bring him up? Why bring it back to him if we're not going to do something with it?" Kind of thing. He's a robot and he's gone. Don't worry about it. Kind of like, okay. And then, yeah. So Forager manages. I think he manages to. Does he throw the shield, or does he hurl himself into the bottom?
So he jumps through the paradigm and then throws his shield into like the control panel, deactivating it for a second time. Yeah. And then, but there is a subsequent explosion, isn't there? Well, I guess that blows a bit like Superman melting it and Starfire blowing up. It deactivates the anti-life explosion, but it explodes.
Doesn't blow. It blows up, but it doesn't blow up the planet.
Yeah,
put it like that.
Lucky.
So very lucky. He knew exactly what to do. Batman barely survives. The parademon is dead, but Forager has also died in the final sacrifice and saves the universe. This lowly bug, as he's been described, saves the universe. And then Batman radios in and says, "We did it. We fucking did it.
Boom us out of it, maybe."
Yeah, but not without loss. And then he arrives, and he's absolutely in a mess. And even Superman's like, "Fucking hell, you're a complete state." And then Orion makes a very offhand comment like, "Oh, I didn't know the bug had it in him." And then Batman has that like full panel, like almost like, it's not a full page, but it's a good section of the page of just him punching Orion in the face, and he says his name was Forager, which I thought was really, really cool little moment. But yeah, the one issue I did have with this, they were like, all the heroes are together. Highfather is there, Darkseid is there, Dr. Fate, Etrigan, Superman, Starfire, Martian Manhunter, Green Lantern, and none of them can go to Earth. None of them can go to Earth to help Batman. I
see, because they were just hanging out.
Yeah.
Like, what's going to happen?
They just go,
yeah.
We've not heard any word from Forager.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah.
And they go, well, and they're like, we should go and someone says we should go and help them then. We should go back to planet Earth. And they go, oh, well, it is a big planet. That's
Oh, they
literally
do,
what it
yeah.
says.
They say like,
They
where
go,
would we go? How would we find them? Yeah, you're right.
and I'm like, you've got fucking Mr. Green Lantern who has the ring that does anything. You've got Martian Manhunter who's a psychic and probably find him by reading his mind. You've got Superman who has super senses, super hearing. You've got Dr. Fate who has mystic powers. You've got Light Ray who can look at spectrums of light. I'm sure he can find something. Highfather, God knows what he can do. Darkseid, God knows what he can do. I'm sure between all of you, you could determine one location on planet Earth and help them. But or give them a better reason not to go. Like, oh no, the anti-life is messing with our mother boxes, so we can't travel to Earth. Like, say something that is like that other than we'll just wait it out and just see if the two very human characters that again we said were underpowered, but we gave them a chance that have no chance of winning. Let them go and do it. I'm sure they'll manage. Even like you this is the end of the universe. Like. Send at least Superman at the very bare minimum. Send somebody to sort it out because it's one parademon. Superman could literally just go.
That also
done.
would be really interesting if like Superman did, that classic kind of like burst in, like, haha, I found you, I'm here. Oh, like almost like just too late.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
just a little bit too late.
That might have allowed for a really interesting moment as well. And Batman to be like, why couldn't you have got here 5 minutes before? Or
yeah, you're the fastest one of the fastest men alive. And why couldn't you get here just a little faster? Something like that.
That would have been interesting.
Yeah. Before we get that though, I forgot to mention. We'll pull it back a little bit. I kind of feel like we need to finish that through line. But the right at the end of the story, I want to ask you a question about this. So. John Stewart wants to go off and sit by himself for a while. And Highfather's like, maybe you should go talk to him, John Jones. And he's like, do I have to?
He is like that.
Kill the planet. He's like, do I really have to? And John sat on his own. He finds a yellow gun. He instructs his ring to go like light years away, 2 or 3 light years away. And he points the yellow gun at his head. Again, the lantern ring is going to protect him against anything. So he sends the lantern ring away. And the yellow gun, if it does come back, it won't be able to affect the yellow gun. So he'll still be able to kill himself. And that's the idea. And we're sat with this moment, this very dark, depressing, dour moment. And then he can't do it. And John walks in and tries to convince him to do it. John Jones, the Martian Manhunter, tries to convince him to do it. Now, my question is, do you think he really wanted him to kill himself and was like, you deserve to die for what you've done? Or do you think he was egging him on to actually fight back and be like, he was kind of giving him like, what's the word? Like hard love or tough love.
Reverse psychology.
Yeah, that's the word. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah. Do you think it was that, or do you think that he wanted him to genuinely kill himself?
Well, I think it's I think to start obviously with making this choice to do this in the comic, we sort of have this. We have the adventure finishes, and it's like, oh, here's a coda, and normally the coda is like, oh, thank goodness we're all successful. No, our coda is, I'm going to fucking kill myself. It's a brave move, and it's really dark. Oh, because we just stay with him for a long time, and it's long, slow,
a lot of pages and pages, panels, and no dialogue.
Really interesting moments where like the color in the background completely changes to red, and that's like, you're like, fuck, he's actually about to do this. That's a real, I understand that's color symbolism. Red means danger, means death, means blood. And that's when when Martian Manhunter comes in. So I think, the pacing again of this is fantastic. No, I think it's reverse psychology, but it's a really fucking risky move, because he is literally like, do it, mate. Yeah, I know you said it. You're like, do it. You deserve it. All those people die because of you. There's no point you living. What can you do? You're no good to anybody anymore. Like, he doesn't sort of just say one thing. He says 10 things.
Yeah. He lays it on thick. He really lays it on thick.
It's the way he smiles when John Stewart says like, nah, I'm not going to do it. Kind of like, fuck you. I'll find a way to work through this. And then we get, like you said, the page of Darkseid, the panel of Darkseid. We get a panel of Martian Manhunter here, kind of like smiling, like, yeah, I know what I was doing. That worked.
But then you can read it as ha ha ha, I almost made him kill himself, or you can read it as the reverse psychology thing. I think you can read it in both ways. I think, and that's what I find interesting about it as well. Like, because again, like John Jones has been shown, the Martian Manhunter has been shown as being very alien, but also very human and loving the human race and people. So it was really interesting to see that it's him. And again, he's a psychic as well, and we see him read Metron's mind, and we find out what the anti-life entity is up to. And again, that affects all the other people around him as well because he can't control it. So it's really interesting to see that he's a character that could have an inside track psychology wise with characters, and that's his gambit. He made that risky gambit.
But then if he can do that, and you're right, I forgot about the kind of the mind meld moment earlier, didn't he? Yeah, you're right, because that's that like really exposition part of issue 1, isn't it?
Yeah,
it gets a bit boggy and a bit boring.
Yeah,
but if
kind of needed though, I think.
Yeah, no, you're right.
For this story, if you like you said, like it does a good job of setting up the house, letting you know who the characters are, setting up the universe and the threat and everything. And I think you kind of do need a little bit of an exposition dump at that point.
You do. I agree. It's just a little bit of like, now here comes the dump.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Orion's going to squat down on his astro harness. Here comes the dump. No, I think if he is able to read minds, if he's able to connect with people in that way, then I think that would help him to understand that this is the right way to make John Stewart not kill himself. I think that'd be my argument. Would be like,
I guess he's reading his mind moment by moment, so he could kind of know where to go or how far to push it, maybe as well.
Yeah. Although to us as a reader, it feels like, whoa. To him, he knows that this is probably. It's not that he thinks this is the right way. It's actually he knows this is the right way because he is able to tap into his mind. Yeah.
Because I know there's been, I remember there was a court case, going to get very dark now, but there was a court case a few years ago with a young girl and a boyfriend, and she texted him, "Go, I'm going to kill myself," and she basically said, "Go do it then," and he did.
Right.
So it's kind of like, it's quite a real thing to have to end on. In such a, again, we've had the very human aspects, we've had the grand cosmic battles, we've had the underground kind of sewer battles in Gotham, but this is a real like human moment, which again very bleak to end on. And again, it's a bleak book, but it still is fun and entertaining and lighthearted when it needs to be. But it's quite heavy. I wouldn't probably give this to a young reader if you're just getting into DC Comics. I'd wait till they're a bit more mature. But yeah, it's quite heavy, I think. But I think that's probably what makes it so memorable as well. I think of these kind of deep, dark kind of moments, in contrast with these kind of bright, action-packed scenes as well. There's and again, it's almost like the anti-life equation is getting into each of them in their own way. Like their dark sides are almost coming out, and because they've teamed up with Darkseid, it's also challenging how we feel and view these heroes as well. Like they're becoming, he's like him apologizing. Maybe it seems a bit out of character, but the where these other characters go, that might seem. It's almost like they're kind of, I don't know, they're kind of almost infecting each other with their own psyches almost, or the way they feel about the world and the universe almost. So
and somebody accidentally causing genocide and then considering taking their own life, that sounds fairly realistic to me. That sounds believable. Of course you would think about that idea. And I think the brave part is putting it in, as you said, a comic which has made a lot of interesting decisions along the way, but has also, as you said, done the comic-y stuff that we have come here for. But to end, and actually, it's kind of a double downer ending, because then you get that moment with Highfather and Orion when he's like, "Stop being a racist bigot, fuck off, mate, go and learn something." So, and it's like a hard out. Like we don't get any kind of like Supes and Batman back on Earth going like, "Whew, whoa, what a mission that was, mate." It's like two kind of bleak moments to end the comic.
A double punch to the dick, basically, to end on. And then also, as a slight tease, I don't know if they ever followed up on this, but Darkseid managed to get a pure piece of anti-life, and he's like, ha ha ha, I still kind of won, even though I lost. kind of thing. And that's kind of how we're out on the book. But that
Mm.
was it. That is, and I think we have gone, much like on this podcast, we have gone on a cosmic odyssey. But yeah, overall, I know we've talked about our critiques or anything. Is there anything else you want to mention, or any final thoughts on the book?
No, I think I really enjoy. I think the artwork slightly wins out over some of the writing for me in this occasion, just because I think when we have the high points, they tend to be around how things have been kinetically drawn, and I think the things that perhaps we've critiqued a little bit have been where there've been some story choices. I think you spoke a few times about like these kind of little funny moments within the book. I think one we didn't talk about was when they first find out about the Milky Way, like how if two bombs go off, the Milky Way is going to collapse and it's going to, everything's going to die. You get this wonderful sequence of like these kind of single panels of like facial reactions. And Superman's like, "Oh my god!" And Martian Manhunter's like, "Oh no, that's awful." Batman just looks stoic and normal. It's definitely been written to show. Well, of course, Batman would just be. I don't know. For me, again, you were talking about moments you thought, yeah, well, not nonplussed, but like, well, I'll just deal with that if I have to. But you were talking about moments that like were kind of little funny moments where they know exactly what they're doing. And that was another one that stood out to me because they repeat that process later on when when Green Lantern, when it all goes wrong and that planet gets destroyed, they do it again with kind of like Darkseid and Etrigan and Jason Blood and Highfather. And again, they sort of play with what each facial expression is telling you about each character at that point, and it's Darkseid is going like, But I just particularly love the fact that of course, Batman is not reacting to that at all. I thought that was a lovely moment.
Yeah. I love that panel. It's a very Jim Starlin idea. He was an artist as well, Jim Starlin, just to make you aware, a writer and artist, and I really like his art as well. I think it's fantastic. I love that panel where Darkseid explaining all the planets and how they're connected, and then you have that reveal that it will destroy the Milky Way galaxy. And I love that it's not like a screen or anything. It's this weird kind of lever that kind of goes to each planet. It's kind of almost like an old school, like kind of tactile kind of lever. It could easily be like an iPad kind of.
You've got to move like a little.
Yeah, like a little pin or something.
Yeah.
It's kind of I don't know how to explain it, but if you look at the panel, it's it'll show you all the planets, but it's almost like Darkseid's on a floating platform, and it's kind of like a kind of, it's almost like the gearbox in a car kind of thing. That's kind of what it looks like a little bit. So you kind of move it, and this one thing moves into the different slots. But I love that it was so simple. And kind of not very visually interesting, yet very visually interesting at the same time. It's just like a grey steel panel, but it kind of displays all. And again, it's got the names of each of the planets and shit, and who lives there and all that. But again, it was because it was so like. Usually it's like displaying on big panels or holographic imagery and shit like that. I just love that kind of like fucking like old school practical, like what's the word, kind of not digital but kind of analog type technology. I loved it. It's kind of like Alien or something, like kind of it's something like the truckers in space type thing kind of going on. There's something,
as Mike likes to say,
tactile.
dirty sci-fi,
full of dirty people. Yes, absolutely, 100%. But yeah, I really enjoyed reading this. Definitely not perfect. Definitely, like you said, a little bit dated maybe when it comes to kind of the writing, some of the dialogue and the way they present certain ideas, all the kind of caption boxes and things. And again, not perfect 100%, and but I think on the whole, I still think it's a solid book, and it's self-contained. It's really enjoyable, and I think you'll be hard pressed to forget the visuals and also some of the kind of events of the book as well. Like you'll always remember that Green Lantern fucking killed an entire planet. You'll never forget that, and you'll never forget the fact that he tried to kill himself at the end as well. And Forager sacrificing himself, and Orion being a genocidal maniac, a genocidal bigot as well, of course. Because he talks about everybody. I think even Green Lantern calls somebody a turnip, which I thought was like kind of a bit. I think I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Forager or someone. But he's like, his head's like a turnip or something, and I was like, that's a bit bigoted, Green Lantern. Again, I don't think they do the Zanshi thing for Green Lantern in that Justice League show, but it's definitely been explored in the comics and the guilt he feels and how it affects him later on down the line, especially in the Jeff Johns run. I remember them bringing it up quite a lot, and how it informed his character, taking his job a lot more seriously and being more careful. And his even his Green Lantern constructs become very articulate and very specific because he's an architect, and and they become so intricate because he's planning out every fine detail. And that's again part of him dealing with the collapse of Xanshi, is him trying to be prepared for whatever comes next, like down to the minute detail in every construct. It's stronger and better because he's on every level made it complete construct, as opposed to just being a fucking big hand or a big fucking hammer. It's like a big fucking sniper rifle or something that's actually works. So yeah, it definitely says a lot about the character. And again, like you might not particularly like some of the characters in here, but I think it's a good mix of all what they do and what they don't do, and I like the range. And again, I like that it's Alien Month, so I picked this story because it is the team that is solving these problems is mostly an alien team, minus really Batman. Really, everyone else, and sorry, John Stewart, but John Stewart's even a kind of a cosmic hero anyway, so it's kind of in that kind of alien cosmic universe world type thing. So yeah, but no, really enjoyed revisiting this. It's a shame Max couldn't join us, but he did give us a few comments before we go out. But I wanted to ask you before I forget. Because it's been Alien Month, I've asked this of all my guests, even when I've just forgotten. Just right at the end, I've asked this question. Are you, Jack, a believer?
In the words of a very influential show in my life, and a lot of people's around my age, I want to believe. I think it was maybe Tony said it in the last episode. It's arrogant to say that we're alone in the universe, and you and Mike had a really interesting discussion in a previous episode as well. Yes, I think that there has to be, and I think if you were intelligent or advanced enough to be able to blast around the cosmos, why the fuck would you want to talk to us lot? Bunch of idiots that spending, the way that we spend our time and our intellects and our money. I don't really care about money, but like the people who do have money that spend their money on what they spend it on. Why would you look at us and think, oh yeah, let's get in touch with them and invite them out into the galaxy? Until Zephyr Cochrane invents that warp drive ship and proves to the rest of them out there that we are worthy of first contact, I think they're safe. They're making the right choice to stay at a safe distance.
I mean, you're going on there, and I was kind of worried you might have a yellow gun somewhere. I was kind of worried about you.
I'll be honest, I wouldn't use it on me, but there's a hell of a lot of people that wouldn't mind using that yellow gun on.
Fair enough. I asked Max the same question, and he said 100% nailed on. I believe without question that they exist. They've been coming here for centuries, and one day their existence will be undeniable. I just hope I live to see the day.
Nice.
Very good. So Max has sent me an email. He couldn't be with us, but he has sent me an email on his thoughts. So let's hear what he thought of Cosmic Odyssey. Cosmic Odyssey is a highly eventful miniseries that, whilst on the surface is somewhat dated, really throws up some interesting sections when you delve into it. Its late 80s timestamp is very prevalent in the dialogue style, as the characters describe every last action and thought that they have, which is very indicative of the era. But this is no gee willikers kind of book. Starlin goes very big in this book. The stakes are enormous. With the very fate of the universe in the balance, the super team assembled features some of DC's biggest hitters teaming up with the New Gods to save the day. By splitting the lineup into teams of two, we get more intimate character-driven beats that get to the heart of the characters. Also, by having the New Gods share the spotlight with the household JLA members, the more casual reader can learn more about the history of Jack Kirby's bonkers creations and what moments we get here. From John Stewart's cocky attitude resulting in accidental genocide to him contemplating suicide in a very real way. This is certainly not a book for all the family. The bigotry of Orion that results in a deserved right hook from Batman is a fascinating look at the character. Yes, he has been brought up on the utopia of New Genesis, but he is Darkseid's biological son. It raises the nature-nurture debate and poses the question of whether our upbringings reflect on our personalities above our genetics. The art of Mike Mignola is somewhat divisive. I'm not a huge fan of his art style. I find it to be a bit too undisciplined for my tastes, but after all, it is all horses for courses with art. The undoubted highlight of the book is Batman taking a page out of the Ben Grimm Ninja Turtles book of Street Disguises and thinking that a trench coat and hat will stop anybody from spotting him in his Batman cowl. Truly crazy, but it works. Overall, this is a highly entertaining book that offers a heady mix of fun, high adventure, and real emotion. It mostly holds up today, and I would recommend the book to readers new and old.
What a great, I mean, amazing thoughts from Max, of course. I think
Excellent.
I would
Thank you,
have
Max.
really, really enjoyed talking to him about the art, because I think we're fully on different sides of the argument there. Of course, the comment about Batman's just really stood out to me, because I'm just thinking about the idea of, like, I get why the turtles wear a Mac. They're turtles. He's Batman.
Yeah.
Just take he's Bruce Wayne. Just take the fucking cowl off and wear the back and the hat. That's weird. Okay, yeah, I didn't even think about it when I read the comic, but now he's just pointed it out. That's all I can think about.
And again, that's a Kirby thing. That's a Ben Grimm, Jack Kirby thing. He would wear the trench coat and the hat. And again, and the Turtles were fully, like, I know we were inspired by Daredevil and New Mutants, but they're also inspired heavily by the work of Jack Kirby. And that's why they all wear the trench coat and hat. That's their disguise. Again, totally ridiculous, but it's a very Kirby-ism. Forgot to mention as well, Etrigan is a Kirby created character as well. So that's his, again, that's why he's kind of in here, I think. That's why they throw him in here as well, even though it's not, a sci-fi kind of element. I enjoyed his inclusion as well. Just very quickly as well, recently in the Comics in Motion family, we've had one of our kind of family members pass away. So Steve J. Ray passed away, a big kind of Batman fan, a big Jim Starlin fan, and also a big fan of this book as well. Really sad to see him go. He was battling cancer, and due to complications, he passed away very recently in the last week or so. And we're all devastated by it. I didn't know him as well as I would have liked. But he seemed like a guy I could get on with. There is an upcoming podcast that will be released by his child Adam at some point when they get round to it, which again was a wonderful experience, and really enjoyed talking to Steve. But one of the last messages Steve sent me was about this comic, and he said, "Cosmic Odyssey is a classic," is what he said. I don't know how well you knew Steve as well, Jack. But he seemed like a really stand-up guy.
Absolutely, yeah. I've recorded a couple of times with him, had some nice exchanges with him in groups, and then some personal messages with him too. Yeah, he was a passionate guy, and he would foster passion in other people, and would want people to give people the chance to express their passion. And that's something which is a quality that we could all aspire to continue in his stead. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, again, it's very infectious. Like, we're all pretty positive people, I think, for the most part. And we do kind of keep that going, and we talk about positivity. And he said, when I was on Detective Comments, which is coming out, I'll link all of Steve J. Ray's podcasts as well. Please go listen. Wonderful personality and charm and charisma he had. And again, very knowledgeable about Batman and DC Comics and stuff. So if you've liked this, you'll definitely like all of his stuff that he talks about. He said to me, he was like, I only want to talk about positive things. And I went, I'm with you. I'm the same on my podcast. If I can avoid talking negatively about something, I will, but I will still critique things when it is necessary. But yeah, in general, we want to keep the positivity going, and that's what we're going to try and do, I think, from now on. And I'm sure everybody in the community will do the same thing. But yes, that is us finished, and that is Alien Month finished. How have you enjoyed it, Jack? Because I know you listen to every one.
I have listened to everyone. It's been fantastic. And I think you've had a really interesting mix of people and a really interesting mix of topics within the broader scope of Alien. I'm glad to have swooped in at the end and done something which just got me out of my comfort zone a little bit.
Yeah.
But I've really enjoyed it, so thank you for including me.
Yeah, we'll do more comics in the future. I want to try and do a bit more comics related stuff. Next month we've got some X-Men comics I'm doing solo. But yeah, maybe in the new year I'll try and get some more comics in when I can, if I can. But if you want to go on Patreon, I've got lots of comics on there. So go and check those out. I'm at spiderdanandthesecretboars.com. But where can we find you, Jack?
X, I'm most active. I'm Jack's Musings. And then all my random thoughts on movies and books and comics that I read are available under the same name. I'm drawing to a close season 1 of my own show, Back to the Filmography. So you and I will be reconvening again in only a couple of days. And I will be covering Jason Statham's final appearance for now in The Beekeeper before a wrap-up show and then the launch of season 2 in September. So yeah, exciting times for the show.
I can't wait. It's so exciting. And yeah, I'm happy that I'm there for the alpha and omega of this, your very own cosmic journey. Cosmic
Absolutely,
Odyssey.
yeah. Thank you for bookending season 1 for me. I appreciate it.
Oh, loved it. I've had an absolute blast every time I've come on, and yeah, and I've listened to you've listened to every one of my shows. I've listened to every one of yours, and yeah, just amazing. And again, good set of guests, amazing conversations that go all sorts of every way. I've just listened to your Expendables 4 with Max. I will link that in the show notes as well. Excellent podcast. If you want to hear them both, I popped it on my social media today. In fact,
I did. Thank you. And I will say we tried to be positive, but sometimes you can't always be. We try, but sometimes you've got to call it as you see it, right?
Yeah, you can hear my thoughts on The Acolyte over on the Comics in Motion podcast with Mike and Andy. Yeah, I was not that positive about that, though I do find some positives about the show. It was not my favourite. But yeah, that's it. I've really enjoyed Alien Month. It's been really fun. And next year, I'll have a co-host again, and we're going to be doing banned films, me and Tonya Todd. Again, I put a list together over on Letterboxd if you want to have a look. Maybe poke.
If you've got a week
Tonya
to get through the list,
through them all. It's a short list, quote unquote short list. I think there's 150 there with the reasons they were banned as well. So if you want to, it's mostly
that
mostly
sounds like
Tonya,
a Spider-Dan list, a Spider-Dan short list of 150 choices. Yeah.
I do put quote marks on the word short, so that counts, I'm sure. But yeah, I like making lists. Apparently, films I'll never see, huge lists that I'll never ever watch or finish. But you like lists, Jack? It's fine.
I do.
It's all for you. So we've not decided what we're going to do. We've not talked about it as of yet. But I've got some ideas. But I think it's probably going to be like a one film for each month, each day of the month, each week of the month, and then probably have a guest as well, I think. And I might maybe default to Tonya. Maybe we'll follow her kind of layout for the banned books she's been doing. Definitely go check out her banned books. Amazing set of podcasts, amazing message, amazing everything. Well worth a listen. I'm going to be on another one of those, but it's a big book this time, so I better get listening. It's a big adult book, so I better crack on with that. But thank you again, Jack. This has been amazing. I appreciate you. I know again this isn't really your wheelhouse, but I like that you've gotten out of your comfort zone and just give it a bloody good stab.
Hey, look, you know me. I'm up for anything, and I appreciate you keeping everything fresh for me, keeping me finding new experiences. So thank you.
Absolutely. Well, we'll see you next month in August, and we're going to be talking X-Men all month. Me and X-Men. You know me. I'm going to go on for far too long about it and bore you to tears. But yes, we will see you next time, and as always, prepare for prattle.